Hello, everybody. Um, I wanted to do something different today to promote my memoir. Uh, but before I go into that, I wanted to say that in the beginning, my purpose was not to actually publish this book. It's a long story, but the book I published it through a company called Storyworth, and they help you write the book, and they give you about a year to do it. And it was mainly for family and friends who might be interested in it. And the reason that I didn't want to publish it was because I figured, I'm honest with myself. I said, yeah, who really cares to know about Jimmy Rivera? I mean, I'm talking about the world itself, the people out there that are our readers, except maybe my own friends and family. The point is that my nieces visited me in my house, and I had 2 copies of the book. And I told them, they were interested in reading it, and they read it. And one of them loved it so much that she wanted to order 3 copies for her daughters and her mother. And I said, look, you know what? I got a better option. Instead of buying it to Storyworth, they were charging me $35 plus tax and shipping. Let me go ahead and upload it on Amazon, and you could probably get it for half the price, and that's exactly what I did. So I'm going to do something different to promote my book, and I don't want this video to go long, but I'm going to read some excerpts, and I'll probably paraphrase a couple things to explain what I'm reading about. I've seen it done by 2 other authors, awesome authors, and they're my Facebook friends. If you want a link to their books, they're awesome books, just let me know, and I'll send you the information. But this is a new thing for me, so I'm gonna start doing that. Try to do one once a day, pick a chapter. Today I picked my first chapter about my father, but before I even go into that, I'm gonna read the introduction. Now this is the soft cover one, okay? I don't know, in the video maybe the words might come in backwards, but it basically says My Story by Jimmy Rivera. I changed it so when you get the new book, it'll say My Story, My Destiny. And this is the hardcover book. Same thing, all right? I noticed that the soft cover's selling more than the hardcover, probably because of the price. And when I realized that, I purposely raised the price of my hardcover to force people to buy the soft cover. It is much cheaper, and you actually get it in a couple days compared to my hardcover. Okay, it might actually, I don't know why, Amazon ships it a month later. In the soft cover, you get it in maybe 2 or 3 days. So I'm gonna go ahead and start off. I don't want to rattle on. Well, I will say one thing. When I wrote this book, I went crazy on the pictures. So the book is 470 pages, and my life in a nutshell. And I realized when I was writing my book, I can actually write an encyclopedia of the things that I went through in my life. And if you were to experience that and write your memoir, which I highly recommend it, I'll show you how. It is very therapeutic. It helped me with my PTSD, and believe me, it works wonders in your mind, in your mindset, and the way you look at things. The reason there's so many pages, I had to leave a lot of things out, of course, but I put a lot of pictures, and I had to stop because I was telling my wife, this is becoming a photo album. I need to stop this. But anyway, let me go ahead and read the introduction, and I'll read an excerpt of my first chapter, which is dedicated to my father, called Papi. Here goes the introduction. When I decided to write my biography, my memoir, my story, or in my own words, my story, I was not aware of the challenge of that undertaking. It was a time of reflection, regret, and laughter, and sorrow. I was forced to face my past demons and present ones. I found myself asking God for forgiveness of the things I have done or decisions I made in the past. But the most important thing was forgiving myself. My story, of course, starts in the early years of my life. A Puerto Rican kid trying to navigate the streets of the Lower East Side of New York City. I also write briefly of the 2 main people who molded my life and turned me into the man I am today, my parents. I write about my high school years, afterwards joining the Army, and my war experience in the jungles of Vietnam. Of course, I talk about my first wife and my firstborn, Teresa. Unfortunately, that marriage ended in divorce. Life takes me to the meeting of my present wife, Maria, who birthed my 2 daughters, Yadira and Erica. They are the mothers of my precious grandchildren, Elias, Adia, Avery, and Harper. Life always has surprises for you. In my case, finding Jesus, preaching the Word of God, which, by the way, I miss, a salesman for Goya Foods, a participant in honoring the 65th Infantry Regiment Buccaneers to receive the Congressional Gold Medal in Washington, D.C. And believe me, that was a very great honor for me. Disaster relief in Puerto Rico, what an experience. After Hurricane Maria devastated the island. My heart attack, and then my wife's breast cancer operation. What I found out while writing my story, that the outcome of your life is determined by your thoughts, words, and actions. They lead to great things and for others death. A simple word spoken makes a difference. That's my story. You have yours. The story continues. You determine its outcome. So that's my introduction in a nutshell. I made it short and sweet for the simple reason that I wanted to not make this book as long as it already is. And behind every story, there's always some pictures of my family or events, pictures of what I'm writing about, basically. So I'm going to start just an excerpt of Papi. Of course, I'm not going to start in the beginning, but I'm going to work my way towards the end. I had last seen my dad in New York City with my wife Maria, my girls Yadira and Erica in 1990. They were little girls at that time. It was Christmas time again in my sister's house. He looked pale and weak and old. I felt bad. Again, I felt bad I was leaving him. I recall my last visit to Puerto Rico. I had told him that I am going to retire from the Army and live with him. I saw that the house was not in good shape. I told him that I will help fix it up. I always felt regret for not keeping my promise, but destiny has other plans. We have to accept it and be flexible and move on. It could be cruel, but it is what it is. I had orders to go to Fort Lauderdale, California. We drove all the way to California from New York. I reported to my unit and started my new job position as an infantry platoon sergeant. I was in charge of 35 soldiers. On 29 March 1991, at about 6 in the morning, the executive officer of the company informed me that my wife Maria had called to go home because there was an emergency. I got home and Maria was crying. She told me that my sister had called and informed her that my father had passed away. We hugged and cried in each other's arms. So we made arrangements to fly out to Puerto Rico. When we got there, we found out that my father had prostate cancer. He kept it to himself and did not tell anyone. My sister had suspected, but he always denied that he was sick. He was spending time with my older brother, Junior, at his house. So I arrived in Jalco later that afternoon. My sister, Suni, and my brother, Cesar, were already there. My older brother, Junior, was with his wife, Margie, at the funeral parlor. I got dressed in my army dress green uniform. Maria decided that she did not want to go to the funeral. Maria decided that she did not want to go to the funeral. She decided to stay with the girls because she did not want to see him like this. While I was at the funeral and met with the family, as I had mentioned in the above paragraph, my wife stayed at the house with the girls. Maria was watching TV when she heard someone clearing their throat at the front door and knocking on the door. When my wife got up and opened the door, there was nobody at the door. While she was at the door, she caught a whiff of Old Spice cologne. Anyone that knows my dad knew that he was always clearing his throat. He had suffered from postnatal drip, just like me. His favorite cologne was Old Spice. So we believed that my father paid a visit to Maria and the girls. We believed since they did not go to the funeral, he visited them at the house to see them. The next day was the burial. It is customary that the family and friends walk behind the hearse to the cemetery. We walked to the new cemetery. My father had bought a family plot years prior. My mother was moved from the old cemetery to the new one a few years back. This particular cemetery was where my cousin was buried. He was the first one buried here. He was killed in Vietnam. The following morning at dawn, I had a vision of my father visiting me. He looked young and healthy. He wore a gray suit. It was so real that to this day, I cannot tell if it was a dream or a real event. I saw him standing over my bed and I was in shock. I told him, "Dad, you had died." This was in Spanish, of course. He responded and said, "Don't worry, I am fine. Yo estoy bien, no te preocupes." Then I immediately woke up. The feeling I felt that morning was that he had just left the room. After all the sadness and depression that I was suffering in the last few days was gone. I felt relieved and I was at peace. I was so thankful to my father and my mother. They loved us dearly. They taught us values that have stayed with us for this rest of our lives. Love of family and love of God. I still dream about my father, not as vivid as that early morning, but I know that both parents are still watching over us in some way or another. One of my deepest regrets is that my mother was not able to meet my wife and 3 daughters. And of course, my mom and dad were not able to meet my grandchildren. But I am sure they are smiling down on all of us from heaven. So that in a nutshell is just a little portion of the story of my father. There's a lot more. And believe me, I can actually write a book on my father, my mother, my daughters, my wife. I could write a book on every single person in my family that I love dearly. And you can do the same thing. So I hope you enjoy my little excerpt from my book. This particular thing is right now available for $14.95. I'm not really in it for the money, folks. Because, to make money on Amazon. I'm not no Britney Spears who sold millions of copies on her book. And the hardcover, I raised the price to $24.95. The only purpose is to force you to buy the soft cover. But if you're serious about writing the book, about buying the book, and you prefer hardcover, message me. And you know what? I'll lower the price just for you, okay? Because, like I said, I'm not really interested in making money. What I'm making here is probably gas money. I'm more interested in people who are really interested about knowing me personally, a little bit about my life and background. So I hope you enjoyed the small excerpt. Tomorrow, God willing, I'm going to talk about my mother, and I will continue with every chapter in this book. I'm going to talk about my days in the Army, how I met my wife. I have 2 chapters dedicated to Vietnam, and believe me, I could write a book or even more on that. And I wrote about my experience with the Borinqueniers. I wrote about my experience during Hurricane Maria when I met Tony Alsop, awesome dude. And it goes on and on. So God bless you. I hope you enjoyed this. And if you have any comments, let me know if you really like this video. I'm going to share this on my YouTube channel. Reason being is because when you put it on Facebook, you go a little over 10 minutes. Sometimes it doesn't go through. But I'm going to put it on my channel. If you see my channel for the first time, just like and subscribe. I usually promote my business on there, but lately I've been starting to promote my book and other things that I'm involved with. God bless everybody. I love you, and you have a beautiful day.